Hey guys, welcome to another video. Strap yourselves in, because this one's going to be a little bit lengthy. Today we're talking about dreams on the PS4, and we're going to be discussing how to approach logic and programming, and trying to get whatever your creation is to do whatever it is you want it to do. Now, this is not a tutorial. I'm not going to teach you anything step by step. I'm not going to teach you anything at all. In fact, you gotta learn, you gotta teach yourself. I mean, that's what I did. And if you're here, you're probably trying to do that already, so kudos to you. And I was in the same boat not too long ago, and I'm still in that boat, but I thought I would throw my lifeline out there to anyone who might be like me and need it. I spent days, I've had this game for a week. I've spent the last 3 or 4 days just straight figuring out a logic problem to get what I want to happen. And I've scoured YouTube for all the videos, and there's literally like 4 people who make consistent videos about dreams and tutorials on how to make things work. And they're good. I love them. Neon the Coder, Acer, Lone Beardo, and Lady Lex UK all made videos that helped me greatly. There's bits and pieces I took out of all of them, or at the very minimum, I learned a technique that I then later applied to something I needed, which is part of what we're going to discuss today in the philosophy of approaching logic. But ultimately, I couldn't find a specific tutorial for what I wanted, and the ones I did gave me the tools I needed, but not knowing that I had those tools now, I didn't know how to use them. You know, it wasn't very clear. There's a lot of videos that show you specific parts of things, but not how to implement them overall in a broader spectrum. So that took a lot of my own work, and like I said, three or 4 days in, I finally figured out the problem, and it turned out that I didn't need half the logic that I had gone through. But the point more is that there were no videos for someone exactly like me. They all had great information, but they all seemed to approach their videos from a standpoint of somebody who kind of knows what they're doing already, so they don't really explain things in a way that helped me out personally. However, when it comes to approaching logic, it's really all about simplifying everything and breaking it down to its basic elements. Basically everything when it comes to making your game work is going to come down to, is something true or is it false? And if it's true, what does it do? And typically in a game, you'll work backwards, from there. Like, okay, this is what I wanted to do. And then what do I need? And what needs to be met to make it do that, blah, blah, blah. Because most everything is a yes or a no. Literally, it's always going to be a matter of conditions that need to be met, and how do you meet them. So that's usually where I start when I want something to happen. If I want to do something, I go, okay, what do I need to do? What is it doing? I want to switch weapons. Well, I need to know what my weapons are. And how do I know what they are? Well, they need to have an ID. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, an ID is really just a variable, and that can come down to on and off. Once again, yes or no, true or false. So like, do I have this weapon? If I've picked it up, then yes. And that's just, again, a number of variables that you're setting. But when you approach how to do it, that's what's important. You have to think about it as a series of yes and no, true and false, on and off. I want this to happen, conditions and what meets those conditions. That's the best way to break it down. For me, I don't even jump into coding. I think about it for a good hour or so. I go over it in my head, I talk it out. Sometimes I'll write it down on paper, I'll write the questions down, I'll use little drawings to kind of visualize. I'm a very visual person, visual learner, so, maybe that's why the coding and the programming never came naturally to me. Like, I always hated math, but yet I'm great at logic, puzzles, things like that. And that's all this is. It's just a puzzle. It's a giant puzzle that you got to solve yourself. They give you all the tools you need. There's plenty of chips, and there's all the things you would need to do anything you want. You just have to understand how they work. And that's half the battle, And another great tip is that when you're approaching logic, or you're approaching a technique, or you're even watching a video tutorial and somebody doing something, that technique can always be applied to many different things, not even necessarily objects in your game. It could just be the way that it handles a bit of information, because it's not any different. Everything is a series of conditions that need to be met, true and false, yes and no. Sometimes there's a number or a variable in there, but even that comes down to, does this equal this? Yes or no? Is this true or false? So when you approach anything, when it comes to getting your project to do what you need it to do, always start with breaking it down to the basic elements. What am I doing? What do I need to do? What do I need to do that? And honestly, that's it. And I could go into details. I could even do tutorials step by step on how I approached the logic that I've done and how I got things to work the way they do. And I might do more in-depth tutorials where I don't necessarily go step by step, but I show you what I have and I go step by step through how it works and why it works. I'm not going to start from scratch and put it together like some people do, but if it's something that anybody wants, I might start doing that, because I feel like I can approach it from a standpoint of somebody like myself who doesn't exactly get it, but I can explain it in a way that you will. For instance, the breaking it down into yes, no, true, false, on, off is the first step. And then try to think outside the box. Excuse me. Like I said, I spent 3 days on this logic that it turned out was completely unnecessary. I was overthinking it. I didn't need half the stuff I did. And I wouldn't have known that had I not walked through it step by step and did it the hard way, to only find out that I didn't need to do that. So obviously I had to go through that. But sometimes you're overthinking it. Sometimes something is already being done, you're just not aware of it. So it's important to really try to think outside the box when it comes to any logic problems that you face. But you're basically always saying, what do I want to do? What am I doing? What do I need to know to do that thing? In the case of, like I said, me wanting to switch weapons, I need to know what weapons I have, which is just a matter of assigning a variable that identifies the weapon. When I pick it up, it assigns that variable. If that variable is assigned, then that means true. I have that weapon. That can only be turned on if I have that weapon. Like in my case, and in many cases, I use the variable of current weapon. A lot of thought has to go into the things, the details behind all of it. So it's not as easy as just typing current weapon and plugging it into your game or your creation. There's a lot more to it. But the simple, That's for you to figure out. And trust me, it's not that difficult to get the basics down. And then once you start understanding it, it makes, again, more and more sense. Um, but you just break everything down, approach it from a very slow, step-by-step logical process, and most of the time there are chips for each one of those processes. Let's say you have a special attack, and that special attack can only be triggered by two conditions. That's easy. There's a gate or a chip that is called an AND gate. You plug two things into it. If this and this, then it sends out a signal. Boom. So that's the first step to setting up, needing conditions to do something. And that's what everything is. Whether it's needing to do a special power, needing to pick up a weapon, needing to go through a door, needing to make a camera rotate and move a certain way in a certain amount because you're making a music video. Whatever it is, the philosophy, the philosophy applies. And that's what's really helped me get through designing my own logic when I can't find it. There's a lot of videos out there that would, be sort of what I was looking for, or they would have a technique that doesn't work with what I'm doing with the way that my logic works. So I would either have to overhaul it or I have to figure it out on my own anyway, which, ultimately that's what I did. I just used everything I had learned from watching all these videos and trying out different things and then getting my brain flowing, and then I just broke it down step by step and finally got it to work. And then even after getting it to work, I was thinking of other ways to make it better because I was like, oh wait, I don't need to do this. I'm already doing that here. Let me just grab this and, so it's really all about how you think about it and how you approach it. And in the background, you'll see I'm doing a lot of animation stuff right now, and that's not what this video is about. I'm probably going to go more in depth into that in some other videos. Game design is a huge passion of mine. I went to school for it. I haven't done anything with it for 7 years. There's just been a void, and this game filled it. I discovered it. I mean, I was aware of it, but I really discovered it about a week ago and decided to pick it up, and I haven't put it down since. I haven't stayed awake all night as much as I have recently. Like, it's consumed my life. But I'm gonna make something cool, at least something I think is cool. I'm working on it. There's a teaser trailer for it that I've already put out. I haven't released the demo level yet, but I'm thinking about doing that soon, and even by the time you watch this, it might be already out. Other than that, the approach to logic and philosophy is pretty simple. Break everything down into true and false, yes or no, 1 and 0. Use that information to find out what you need to unlock the next step in the process. And sometimes that takes, just a lot of thinking. Most of it's just a lot of thinking and planning out. Things gotta be planned out in advance, because as random, like, talking about a game, as random as things in a game appear, even a game like Grand Theft Auto, where it seems like the city's alive, even in that instance, all of it's planned out. All of it's already been mapped out. Even the bits that are random have been planned out, and then, they made them random. So it's a lot of thinking that goes into it, but you can make anything do anything in this game. I mean, that's all there is to it. There's not a tutorial out there for everything. There are, however, tutorials in the game that are super helpful, and not only that, they're like all presented in the form of the game. So you're playing your way through a lesson in, programming or animation or sculpting, whatever it is. They've got tutorials for it. They just don't have, tutorials for specific things. And when it comes to like games, everybody wants to make, the same basic games. Shooters, you're either shooting something, attacking something, or solving a puzzle, or driving something, or playing a simulation of something, whether it be sports or, whatnot. But all of those examples use the exact same, doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're making a racing game, if you're making a Barbie dress-up game, you're making a game for your cat, it doesn't matter. You're going to need logic, and you're going to need to approach it, from a proper place. And for me, that was the way I've outlined. And again, this is not a tutorial, so I hope it was at least helpful. If you have a problem with any of your logic, I'm not one of these guys who says hit me up and I will answer your questions, but I generally respond to most messages, and if you do have an issue and it's something that I can easily help you remedy, I have no problem. And if it's not, I have no problem telling you it's not. So if you do have anything specific, there's no guarantee I can help you, but you can ask. And if not, I can at least point you in the right direction, But for the most part, it's just a matter of how you think about things, and a lot of the processes that you use, techniques that you use, have multiple uses. You can use that, like I said, for more than just a game. You can use it for more than just that thing in the game. Essentially everything in a scene or game or anything like this is just a matter of being turned on and off. When your character's in the zone for picking something up, it turns on the trigger. The trigger turns on the logic that says he's in the zone. You press the button to pick it up. It turns on the fact that you picked it up, which triggers it to tell you a variable that means you picked it up. Now you use that variable for whatever you need. And again, this is something I can go into detail with specifically on my character, and maybe another video. I do a video about how to make a self-sufficient character, because that's what I'm doing. I'm making my character first. He will have everything he needs to just be dropped into a scene, and it'll work. And my next step is to make the scenes and set them up. I've got a few enemies and bosses already worked out, but essentially I'm going to make a hub world with branching out levels and go from there. But first things first, I wanted that character to work. And in trying to get the character to work and do all the things I want him to do, I found myself hitting a bunch of walls. And so I thought maybe a video like this would be helpful to somebody else out there looking for dreams, logic, help, which again, not a tutorial, but I can tell you from my own experience, between watching the tutorial and then the different tutorials out there, and then, approaching it with my own sort of breakdown approach, then I was able to do what I need to do. And there are still things I'm hitting road bumps in, but if you're like me, you'll find yourself just constantly thinking about equations and how this or that can interact with each other to do this or that, and how, oh, I'm already doing that, I can just fix this, and boom. There's a lot of that. I went through a lot of trial and error with my whole weapon swapping and equipping, and even now it works. It works, but it doesn't work perfect, and I know how to make it work perfect. I've just been a little bit lazy, and I didn't want to go in and mess with the chips because it works now, and I just, there's always that fear because a lot of times you'll put something together and it doesn't work, or it sort of works, and I've found in this game that when something sort of works, it's because you have something else that's interfering with it. So you gotta go back through everything and see, okay, what's going on right now? What's going wrong? Why is it doing this and not this? When it comes to animations playing, a lot of times it's because there's more than one animation playing that interferes with the skeleton, and that will cause the animation that you're trying to do to be weird, which requires you to have to turn off certain animations when other certain animations are playing. And there's a multitude of ways to do that depending on what you need. But again, it's just a series of saying, hey, when this is happening, don't do this. So when this is on, turn this off. That's easy, right? When this is on, turn this off. That's literally what everything is. Hey, when this comes on, do this. Turn this on. This is off until it comes on. When it comes on, do this, and that could be anything. When you pick up a weapon, that's all it is, turning it off and on. And then when it comes to this game specifically, and if you're making a game like I am, then that's specifically tied to things that, it turns off the item. Literally turns off the visibility, and then you don't see it. So boom. It's, like, if you were to see this character, like right now you can see he has a sword in his hand and a sword on his back. That's because when he's got the sword in his hand, it's in his hand and the one on his back is turned off, and vice versa. And that's just, that's how everything in logic works. Turning things off and on, and what determines, what turns that off or on. And then when it comes to like games like this or logic like this specifically, when you're using microchips, you just add in the idea of power flowing. So you go, okay, I need power to go to this. How do I get the power to this? Like when it comes to button presses, you map that out. You say, okay, here's, you make the function that you want to happen, and then you set the button that you want to do that up to that function in a way that the wire powers it. So that function only happens when you're pressing that button. And again, that's just all logic. Is this happening? Yes. And then if it is, do this. You're just using yes and no to connect a bunch of wires together and telling them whether they can go through. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And it's really fucking annoying. But it's how it works, and it's definitely easy to get through when you stop and think about it, as opposed to thinking about things in, oh, I want to swing a sword, or oh, I want to do this. You can't think about that. You got to think about it in terms of, all right, what do I need to know to do that? What do I need to know to make that happen? But you just walk through it. You walk through it, and sometimes you walk away. Take a break. If you're like me, I've spent days trying to get something to work, and I don't have like a lot of friends, or like, I can't just call up somebody who's a computer programmer and be like, hey man, I'm doing this, can you help me? It just, and I'm assuming that's the case for most people. But when it comes to approaching computer logic and making your thing work, just remember, it's as simple as asking yourself the base questions of what you're trying to accomplish. And on top of that, it's a series of turning things on and off, or yes or no, or true or false, or 1 or 0. Think of it in those terms. And also think of things in terms of how else they can be used. Because there's many times I've found something that could be used a bunch of different ways in, you know, in a game that I'm trying to make. But this philosophy applies to any logic you're trying to do to create anything. If you're having trouble, you know, it might just be the way you're thinking about it. At least in my case, most of the time it was. That said, good luck. I hope this helps somebody maybe approach their problem. And if you like what you see in the background, I am working on making it, fleshing it out and making something really cool. And hopefully that works out. And when it does, I'll share it. I'll share it with everyone. In the meantime, there will be a little demo level at some point. I have it already made because it's the first thing I did when I got this game, was made this little level. And then I said, okay, I'm going to make this. And so I started from scratch, and that's what I'm doing now, making it what it actually needs to be. But there's a demo, what I call a proof of concept level, and it's pretty fun. I've been playing it a lot just for fun, and I'll release the trailer and then a video when that's out. So if you are watching this and it's not out, give me a subscribe or whatever, however you know, or just keep an eye out, whatever. Anyway, if you're still watching, hope this helped. There will be more videos in the future, maybe more like this, I don't know. I don't know if this is the sort of thing that needs to be out there, but I could have used it. Thanks for watching. Bye.